Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Primetime News. Back from a full week of vacation, but I've still been keeping tabs on what's been going on in the world of reselling. And we have got to go over those second quarter eBay financial results. There's some important information you need to see in there. And I put together some comparative slides that you won't find anywhere else that eBay probably doesn't want you to see. So stay tuned for that. We've got a bunch of primetime crime stories as well, if you're interested in those, some miscellaneous reselling stories, and we'll end off with a really cool, inspirational, feel good story. But first, let's get into those second quarter eBay financial results. All right, so as you can see here, eBay beats estimates on sales and earnings forecasts, so the stock shares rose. Now, the forecast by analysts was that eBay would bring in $2.37 billion of revenue in the second quarter of 2022. And they actually did a little bit better than that. They brought in $2.42 billion of revenue. So, whenever a company can beat analysts' financial forecasts, that can cause the stock shares to rise. But you have to keep in mind the context. So, this was a prediction by analysts that eBay was going to lose money, and they did. They just didn't lose as much money as was predicted. In the first quarter of 2022, eBay's total revenue was 2.5 billion. So it dropped from 2.5 to 2.42 instead of dropping to 2.37 billion. Now, as many people have correctly said, this is something that is consistent with what is happening with e-commerce platforms and other businesses in that they are losing money as steam from the pandemic sales slows down. In fact, eBay mentioned that themselves right here. eBay blames end of lockdowns for a little drop in sales. Now, eBay's little drop is really what appears to me to be a reference of looking at Q2 versus Q1 of 2022. And yes, it is natural we would expect a decline because not as many people are shopping online. But there are a lot of people who are watching this video who have noticed a significant decline in sales that looks like more than a little drop. And so what I decided to do is to do an analysis, do some comparison slides for you of what some of these statistics are in the second quarter of 2022 versus the fourth quarter of 2019 before the pandemic, because the pandemic seems to be something that gets brought up all the time when we have sales drops. And so I figured, well, let's look at what it was like compared to before the pandemic. So let's take a look at some of those slides. All right, so the format I'm going to show you on each of these slides is the same. The blue column shows eBay's fourth quarter financial results in 2019. So those are pre-pandemic levels. And on the right, in the orange column, we have the most recent eBay financials from the second quarter of 2022. And as you can see here, eBay's total revenue has declined compared to before the pandemic. So while it is true that eBay has had a decline as other e-commerce platforms have related to the pandemic, there are also factors outside of the pandemic that are causing eBay to go down in terms of total revenue. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't see a drop from 2.8 billion pre-pandemic to 2.42 billion dollars right now. Now keep in mind that this is eBay's total revenue. So this is their take home money after the transactions have been completed. Remember, of course, we as sellers are going to get a significant portion of that revenue as well. And so when you compute eBay's total sales, the total value of all of the things that sell on the platform, those numbers are going to be higher than this because this is just a portion they're taking out. So the number I just referred to is eBay's gross merchandise volume. This is also known as the GMV, and this is the total value of all of the items that's sold on the platform. And what you can see here is a more significant decline from $23.3 billion in the fourth quarter of 2019 to $18.5 billion in the second quarter of 2022. That's significant. Now, I should mention that eBay did change the way they calculate the GMV in 2021, so that throws a little wrinkle into things. The way they used to calculate it is that they used to calculate that number based on whether or not the transaction actually went through. So there's going to be some difference there as a result of that, but I don't think that that difference would be quite this significant. We would need more in-depth information from eBay to be able to control for that and figure it out. But the point is that there still is an overall decline that we are looking at. And the reason why I think that this decline is related to factors other than how eBay computes the GMV is if we look over here, this is probably the most standout figure to me is the total number of active buyers. Look at this decline. This is a big decline. 183 million active buyers on the platform in the fourth quarter of 2019, and now we're down to 138 million. So there are fewer buyers on the site compared to pre-pandemic. Now, what is one way eBay has tried to make this up if they're having fewer items selling? Well, one way to make it up is you increase the ad revenue. Now, this number includes um, first party ads, so promoted listing ads makes up the bulk of this money. So, but there's also third party ads that are put into this as well, like when you search on the platform. But look at this jump, 137 million in advertising revenue in the fourth quarter of 2019 compared to $275 million now in the second quarter of 2022. That is absolutely crazy. That's astronomical. But one of the other ways in which eBay is going to try to address this problem, in which they are doing, is they are increasing their focus on luxury buyers. That's the target buyer. Because think of it this way with a simple example. If let's take away the millions just to make these numbers easier to digest. Let's say we had 183 users on eBay in 2019 and 138 users, take away the millions, in 2022. And each of them spent 10 bucks. Well, that means that in 2019, the total number of sales would have been $1,830 in 2019 versus $1,380 in 2022. So the way eBay figures it is they say, what if we could get these buyers to increase the amount of money they are spending? So let's say for simplicity's sake, they were able to find a way to make the 138 million users in 2022 spend $20 instead of $10. Well, if they did that, now they brought in $2,760 in sales on those 138 users. And that would be more money than the $1,830 that the 183 users brought in 2019. If we break the numbers down like that, that could help to understand what eBay is trying to do here and focus on those high value buyers. So this is why in eBay's most recent financial presentation, they focused on categories such as their motors department, where you could get expensive car parts, their certified refurbished program, where you could get expensive electronics at a discounted price, luxury handbags, luxury jewelry. We've talked about how they emphasize the sale of luxury watches, luxury sneakers, expensive sport cards. Here you could see they're focusing on the eBay vault, where purchases are going to be $750 right now at a minimum. Their expanded NFT or non fungible token, aka digital collectibles capabilities, where eBay is selling these items at sometimes $1,000 or more per NFT. And then they're talking about the possible emergence of live commerce. We'll see how that develops. But my main point for now is that if you have noticed more than a little drop in sales over the last few years, you are not alone. And I want you to know that it is not just because of pandemic related changes. Yes, that plays a role, but there are systemic problems within eBay that need to be fixed, which we have talked about in other shows before, and that is contributing to this. And I do not think that eBay's focus on luxury items is going to be a winning solution in the long term. Remember that that represents a policy shift and change from the current CEO, Jamie Iannone, and that is not necessarily something that's going to be locked in stone forever. If and when a new CEO comes in, that CEO may carry on that policy or may shift that policy to something different. But in the short term, what does this mean for you? It means that if you are having problems with sales, especially if you are selling your average run of the mill items, you're going to have some difficulty right now on the platform. And so you really have to try to get into some of these categories that eBay is focusing more on, or you need to find a niche within eBay that is selling very well. Now, that can be a narrow niche or it could be a broad niche. Remember, what a lot of resellers do is sell vintage and collectible items. Now, there's many, many items that could fit into that type of category. So you could go in a lot of different sub niches within that. But just keep in mind that you're going to have to do something different to distinguish yourself at this point on the platform if you're struggling, because eBay is not focused right now on your average small seller. All right, so we've got a lot of primetime crime stories to go over. It's like the criminals thought that since primetime's been on vacation that they could get away with anything that they want. Well, I'm back and we're going to expose all of these stories right here. So I'm going to turn this first one over to my colleague Chris Radcliffe. Take it away, Chris.
A judge sentenced an Army veteran to 18 months in prison for her involvement in stealing more than $2 million in military equipment from Fort Hood. 30-year-old Jessica Smith will also need to pay the U.S. Army $1.3 million. The theft happened back in June of last year, and days later, the equipment was listed for sale on eBay. Two other people are accused of being involved. Nathan Nichols pleaded guilty last year, and he will be sentenced in October. Another Army veteran, Brandon Dominic Brown, pleaded not guilty in November. His trial is set for September of this year.
All right, so now we're going to shift from the military to the USPS and Costco of all places. How many of you are members of Costco? I am. It's a big warehouse discount store here in the Northeast, and I love it. We go there a lot, and I sure would be mad if someone stole my reward check, especially if it was a postal worker. Let's turn it over to our PJ Chang for this story.
Well, this postal worker worked out of this Bayshore facility, which gave him access to people's mail. But according to the DA, it also gave him access to their money.
Shielded by his father, Jerome Fowler ran out of court avoiding reporters. The postal worker is accused of taking Costco rewards checks from the mail and spending them at Costco's across Long Island.
The evidence consists of physical surveillance, video surveillance depicting Fowler redeeming the certificates, and receipts taken from Fowler's Costco account.
Prosecutors say they have video and photos of Fowler, 32 years old, spending other people's rewards checks on big ticket items like jewelry.
That's terrible, especially right now so many people are struggling.
Well, you never get caught your first time, but the more you do it, the more greedy you become.
All right, so I don't know how many people here have used money orders in the past, but it used to be a way that you could pay for items on eBay. I remember getting some money orders in the mail. If you did, let me know in the comment section. And USPS is still a place where you could go to this day and purchase money orders. Well, sometimes something goes wrong with the money order transaction and it needs to be replaced. Well, what happened here is that a USPS worker was supposedly issuing replacement money orders, $96,000 worth, but she was just indicted on theft of money orders and mail fraud because it turns out that there was nothing wrong with those money orders to begin with. And so she would just send those money orders to somebody else who would then supposedly cash it, and then they would supposedly use the money from it. So, in addition to that, this person was also accused of applying for and receiving unemployment benefits while still working for USPS. And the consequences of doing this are very significant if convicted. So, for the money order theft, she'd get up to 10 years in prison for that, 3 years of supervised release, and up to a $250,000 fine. And the mail wire fraud, that's another problem. That could go up to 20 years in jail, up to 3 years supervised release, and a $250,000 fine. So, once again, totally not worth it in any way, shape, or form. All right, so we have USPS workers all over the primetime crime stories this week. This story brings us to the Northern District of Georgia, where three USPS workers got in significant trouble for being involved with a drug distribution ring with a local drug dealer. So they were distributing cocaine and marijuana along their service routes. Now, it originally started with one USPS worker working with the drug dealer, but when that USPS worker went out on disability leave, he brought in these two other USPS workers to be part of the scheme, and they would get a financial cut of the transactions that eventually took place. So the original postal worker involved in this scheme is supposed to be sentenced on November 3rd, 2022. The drug dealer received a 9-year prison sentence, and the two other postal workers received sentences of between about 3 to 4 years in prison, over $1,000 in fines each, but less than 2,000, and multiple years of supervised release. All right, so now let's go over to the Department of Justice in the District of Maryland. One of the stories we've talked about a lot here on the Primetime News is criminals stealing mail keys from USPS and then using those to steal people's mail and commit identity theft and all sorts of other crimes. In addition, there's the crimes involved in stealing the mail keys, which often involves robbing postal workers. I've even shown a video of that in which it looked like a mail key was most likely what was stolen out of the postal worker's pocket, if you remember that video. So, in this update, we have four defendants in their 20s who are now facing charges from the Department of Justice for stealing mail keys. That's the allegation, and then stealing mail with the mail keys. The federal charges are significant here, so they can result in up to a 10-year prison sentence for stealing the keys and up to a 5-year prison sentence for stealing the mail. All right, so we have an update on the Zada kick story. This involves the former owner, Michael Malekzada, and his chief financial officer, who have now both been charged in an $85 million shoe selling scheme. I've talked about this several times in the past. Basically, what happened originally, the business seemed to be legitimate in that basically what it did is it provided mostly sneaker resellers with luxury shoes and sneakers on pre-order, which people would then get and then flip for a high profit. Now, originally it seemed like the business was legitimate and that he was coming through with the pre-orders, but either through a combination of greed or mismanagement or just getting overwhelmed or some combination of that, he was unable to fulfill the pre-orders. And so about $70 million worth of pre-orders were unfulfilled. And when people complained, what they got was some form of a cash refund, but not a total cash refund. And the other part of it would be gift cards to his business. Well, those gift cards, though, were useless because he couldn't actually fulfill what he said his business could do. So this is a big time scam if all of the allegations are proven to be correct. And I told you how we got 70 of the 85 million. Well, the other 15 million, he needed some type of cash flow, right? So what they were doing were they were applying for loans. And this is where the chief financial officer came in, because she is alleged to have misrepresented financial numbers about the company to get $15 million in loans, which they would then use to distribute in some of these cash refunds and perhaps for other parts of the operation. So this is a story I think we're going to hear more from in the future, and I will keep you updated. All right, so I'm just playing this little video here in the background without sound. What you see here is just some examples of retail theft. This is medication, but there's many other instances and many other types of items that get stolen, of course, besides medication. And they don't just show up, on your local street corner for sales. We've talked about in the past, because it's been a focus of the primetime news. Retail theft is that a lot of it shows up on e-commerce platforms. One of the things we've also talked about a lot here, including in the comment section, is that a lot of cities are just not taking this as seriously as they should. And so, as you could see there, a lot of businesses are just boarding up and they're leaving, like particularly in the San Francisco area, for example. But what some businesses are doing to try to take more control of the situation is that they're putting stuff behind locked cabinets. So things like Old Spice, so not just medication, but colognes, Colgate, Dawn, Rite Aid, Walgreens are places that are doing this now. I'm curious in your area if you have noticed this more, and if so, what stores have you seen this in? I think it's going to be a problem for these stores, because it really is a balance that they're going to have to strike. That's one of the things they talk about in this article, because there's just so much that people are going to put up with when they go to a store. They want to be able to grab something quick. They don't want to have to go and get somebody, to come over and unlock a door and, get a particular item. They just want to get it and pretty much go. But unfortunately, that same need for convenience is what puts those items at risk of shoplifting. So I think we need better solutions than just putting things behind locked cabinets. We need to actually crack down on the people who are stealing these things, and the consequences need to be more significant than they are right now. But you know, that this is unfortunately what a lot of stores feel they need to do at this point. All right, so moving on from the primetime crime series, GM has joined Ford in threatening dealers and would-be flippers from significantly marking up or facilitating the resale of high-demand vehicles within 12 months of delivery. So this involves 2023 models of the Corvette, the Hummer, or the Escalade. Now, the threat is that they will withhold the allocation of vehicles from these dealerships if they try to do this type of thing. And for flippers, that they would not transfer the warranty. Well, that could be a significant impact to a buyer. Could you imagine if you purchased one of these cars and something significant went wrong with it within 12 months, and then you were left with, an over $10,000 bill that wasn't covered by warranty? That's absolutely a huge consequence. So I just hate this type of stuff in general, not just when it relates to vehicles, but I believe that if you purchase something legitimately, that there should not be any strings attached with your ability to resell it afterwards. Let me know what your thoughts are on that below. But personally, for me, if a company tried to do that with a particular product, I'm just not buying that product from that company. All right, so in some more random reselling updates, FedEx agreed to buy a 10% stake in Berkshire Grey. That's a logistics technology company. The two already have an existing relationship, but in this new deal, FedEx can purchase 25 million shares into the company if they purchase $200 million in equipment. Now, this equipment is largely robotics, artificial intelligence, sortation type of equipment that is going to help a lot with the efficiency of moving small packages through the processing lines. Now, they already have some of this equipment in 8 sortation locations throughout the country, but this is going to expand that. So it's good news for those who use FedEx. All right, so for those of you who use Facebook Live Shopping, that will be going away on October 1st, 2022. No, it doesn't mean that you can't ever do a live show on Facebook and sell something, but what it does mean is that as of that date, you cannot create a product playlist or tag products in your Facebook Live videos. Live selling on there just hasn't been successful, and the company is focusing more and more on short clips and reels as well as on Instagram. So that's why it's going away. All right, now moving on to a platform where live selling is very popular, Whatnot. They had a problem recently when they brought on Post Malone as part of their promotional event. I talked about it recently. This is the one where he was going to draw a random name in one of the streams, and the winner would have the chance to play him for $100,000 in Magic the Gathering. Now, that's obviously a lot of money at stake, and that game is very popular, but they increased the desirability of the drawing event because they told people that even if you don't have experience, the person who wins the drawing is going to be trained by someone who's an expert in Magic the Gathering. So, what happened is when they went to do the drawing, the app shut down. It crashed. And so they had to postpone it, no pun intended. So I think that it looks bad for the app and it looks good for the app. And it depends on how you want to spin it. Probably both are true. You know, it always looks bad when an app crashes and when it can't follow through with the event that it's supposed to do. However, there is no website that is immune from crashes. It could happen to the biggest websites out there. And it does at least give Whatnot some information about the kind of bandwidth that it can and cannot handle for future types of events. So hopefully they could use that and they could grow from it. Also, when it's for an event that has a lot of hype, if the app actually crashes, you could spin that as the company by saying, wow, it was just so popular. We couldn't even handle the intensity of all of you who are interested in it. So, you know, it just depends on how you want to spin it. All right. Now, earlier when I was going over eBay's financial report, one of the things I mentioned is that eBay was emphasizing how they are focusing on their certified refurbished program. Amazon's had one for quite a while now. Walmart has decided to join the fray. In fact, you could actually go online now and see that they are offering some items as part of their refurbished program. And you're actually going to start seeing those types of items in stores later this fall. Walmart doesn't want to be left behind. It's a very popular and lucrative category. All right, it's time for our inspirational story of the week. And I'm happy to say that this week we have a USPS worker to feature, especially after some of those negative primetime crime stories earlier on. And this story brings us to Oklahoma City, where I actually used to live for a year. It's where I did my neuropsychology internship. And who you're looking at there is Mr. Johnny Bell. He has worked there for 70 years. So they recently had a celebration in his honor. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague here, Jason Hackett, who's going to take you into the life of Mr. Johnny Bell.
Johnny Bell is a humble man of few words. So when he speaks, everyone listens.
And he just loves everyone, and he has a way of just being magic and just drawing everyone together to where they just all felt like family.
And as humble as he is, what he just accomplished is something to certainly brag about. Johnny has been showing up for his job at the post office in OKC day in and day out for 70 years.
It's been a great experience to work with him. 70 years is a blessing.
Johnny was just 23 years old when he started working for the Postal Service. The pay back then, $1.81 an hour.
And he is truly a public servant. He has an opportunity every day to interact with customers, which he thoroughly enjoys.
For a guy that's been here 70 years, he knows the job inside out, and it's just like clockwork for him.
That dedication means that Johnny currently is the longest tenured post office employee in the country.
Thank you for coming.
Friday was all about honoring that dedicated service. And after some cake and a few laughs, Johnny did what he's been doing for the past 7 decades. He went to work.
Well, huge shout out to Johnny Bell. We do need more Johnny Bells in the world. So hopefully that was a fun and inspirational story to everybody. I'm going to wrap things up. I've been sort of off schedule with this vacation, and this whole month is just going to be crazy for me. So things are going to be a little bit wacky. So bear with me. I've got a little bit of a do here. In fact, it's actually mostly full. I don't want to throw the whole thing, or based on last time, the entire room will go up in smoke and flames. So maybe we'll try something different. We'll just toss a sports card over there. Maybe that's not as big as a notebook. So hopefully we don't get as big of an explosion. I'll just lightly, well, it is Superman, so that might cause a problem, but let's see. Oh my I should, of all the cards, I threw a Superman card over there. Of course it's gonna explode. Anyway, everyone, hope you enjoyed it. See you at the next one. Take care.